What is going on, everybody? Good morning, and I hope you're enjoying your Saturday so far. This is NYG Jeffy T 3285, and I'm just here to do a quick video on some of the latest updates surrounding the Brooklyn Nets, as well as I'm going to do a little update on what I think that one of the best young players on this team could do for the 2022-2023 Brooklyn Nets. Now, some of the rumors that have been going around right now involving Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, the never-ending rumors with these two guys. Right now, the Brooklyn Nets are willing to try to work it out with Kyrie Irving, as Kyrie Irving has said he would be willing to stay with the Nets this year. He wants to come back. But the Nets want massive changes with Kyrie Irving in order for him to try to think about giving him a possible long-term extension. And that would mean some of the little perks that Kyrie Irving has been doing lately, he'd have to change them up in order for the Nets to be willing to bring him back at a long-term deal. And in terms of some of the other things that have been going around with Kevin Durant, the Nets are still holding out hope that they can try to reconcile with Kevin Durant, and that he will be willing to reconsider his recent trade request that he made earlier this month in July about wanting to be traded from the Nets. With no really good offers that have been put on the table, and the latest one that happened earlier this week was with the Boston Celtics when they were willing to offer Jaylen Brown, Derek White, as well as a first-round pick, but the Brooklyn Nets declined that deal because they wanted to have Marcus Smart, another rotational player, and more first-round picks included in the deal. And the Boston Celtics right now are hesitant to do that. So as we stand on the front of Kevin Durant, we still don't know because no team has been willing to offer the Nets the type of trade package that they are willing to accept right now. So it's still in a state of limbo, and the Nets are still hoping that Kevin Durant will eventually reverse course on his trade demands and will end up returning to the Brooklyn Nets. And as I stated earlier in the video, Kyrie Irving wants to be back with the Brooklyn Nets, but the Nets want Kyrie Irving to make significant changes in the types of things he's done since he's come to Brooklyn a few years ago in order for them to feel comfortable enough to give him a long-term extension to stay with Brooklyn later on. Now, in terms of the player that I'm looking to maybe make a big time jump with the Brooklyn Nets going into the 2022-2023 season, and that's Nicolas Claxton, who I think shows some signs of becoming maybe one of the better young centers in the NBA. As he played at least 20 minutes per game, he averaged about close to 7 to 8 points per game. He had about 6 rebounds per game with about a block or 2 a game. He had about assists as well as 2 steals per game and about 2 turnovers, but his free throw percentage was rough as it was only shooting about 58% from the free throw line, which is actually an improvement from what he was doing from his previous couple of years when he was shooting in around the 40% range. Nicolas Claxton does have the size, he does have the athletic ability, and he is a very good front court player but he just needs to add more size to his very slender frame in order to become more of a guy that can bang and down low and be able to get more of a low post presence in the Brooklyn Nets offensive game. I think Nic Claxton could be a pretty good player, as the Nets did sign him to an extension recently. They gave him, I believe, 3 years, $30 million to an extension to stay with Brooklyn going forward. So obviously the Nets have value in Nicolas Claxton. They think he could develop into maybe a pretty good center going forward. And even this past postseason, Nicolas Claxton was making some strides in becoming one of the better young centers in the NBA. He just needs to add more size. He needs to improve at his free throw shooting percentage. He needs to become more consistent in terms of his offensive game. And he needs to become better, in terms of becoming a better rim protector, where he's actually starting to improve already, but he needs to start improving those parts of his game, especially on the offensive side of the game, especially on the offensive side of the field. But Nic Claxton has the ability to become one of the better young centers in the NBA. He just needs to keep working at it. He needs to he needs to bulk up more. I think that's one of the biggest things that Nicolas Claxton needs to do this offseason is continue to bulk up more, add some more size to his frame, and just work more on his offensive game. And there's no reason to think that his numbers on the offensive end can't improve going into his 4th season in the NBA since he came out of the University of Georgia in the year of 2018-2019. So I have expectations for Nicolas Claxton that he's going to be able to improve. Now that he's going to be the surefire starting center going into this season with no more LaMarcus Aldridge. Andre Drummond is gone. Blake Griffin is gone. There's no question right now that Nicolas Claxton is the unquestioned starting center for the Brooklyn Nets going forward. And I think that if he can just continue to keep improving on his game offensively and can just add a little bit more bulk to his offensive to his body, he's no reason to think that Nic Claxton, with his athletic ability and with his defensive and rebounding game steadily improving, that he can't become a pretty good center in this league. We just have to see how he develops going into the next season and see what he can bring to this Brooklyn Nets roster going forward. So that's just a little bit of my news and notes going on surrounding Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and what I think that Nicolas Claxton going into his fourth season can bring to the Brooklyn Nets going into the 2022-2023 NBA season. So if you like the video, please hit the like button below. Subscribe if you haven't already to NYGJeffyT3285 for more breaking news, updates, chatter, and any type of news surrounding the Brooklyn Nets, New York Giants, New York Mets, WWE Wrestling, as well as some food for thought. Share your comments below on the latest updates surrounding Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and what your expectations as a Nets fan you think that Nicolas Claxton could bring this team, and what you think he's going to be able to bring to the offensive, defensive, rebounding, and overall his game going into the 2022-2023 NBA season for the Brooklyn Nets. And turn on the bell for notifications on the next video or short they're going to drop surrounding the Brooklyn Nets. So thank you very much. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday morning, evening, afternoon. Have a great rest of your weekend, and let's go Brooklyn Nets. NetsWorld, everyone.